Imagine this. You're sitting in your living room, scrolling through stories, when one catches your eye. A tale about a family struggling to make ends meet, and an unexpected act of kindness that changes everything. Before we dive in, tell me, where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. It's not like I'm keeping tabs on you or anything, or am I? Now back to the story. On the outskirts of a bustling city, in a modest apartment filled with the hum of everyday life, lived the Petersons, a hardworking family of 4. They were the kind of people who always put on a brave face, even when the odds seemed stacked against them. The parents, Michael and Rachel, worked multiple jobs to provide for their 2 kids, Ellie and Sam, who were too young to fully understand why their parents always seemed so tired. But lately, the Petersons' world was closing in. Their landlord had given them an ultimatum: pay the overdue rent within a week or face eviction. Despite their best efforts, they were running out of options. Just when it seemed like hope was slipping away, an unlikely figure stepped into their lives. Tall, composed, and carrying the quiet confidence of someone raised in the public eye, Baron Trump's unexpected involvement would not only change their fate, but also leave everyone who heard the story reaching for tissues. Stay tuned, because what happened next is a testament to the power of compassion, and a story you'll never forget. The Peterson family had always believed in hard work and perseverance. Michael and Rachel, high school sweethearts, had built their life together on those values. They dreamed of giving their children, Ellie and Sam, a stable home filled with love and laughter. For years, they managed to do just that, even if their life wasn't luxurious. Their modest apartment might have been small, but it was cozy, with walls adorned by Ellie's crayon drawings and shelves lined with Sam's toy cars. Michael worked as a delivery driver, a demanding job that kept him on the road for long hours, while Rachel held 2 part-time positions, one at a local diner and another at a daycare. Despite their grueling schedules, they always made time for their kids. Family dinners were sacred, even if they were just microwaved meals shared at a tiny kitchen table. But the past few months had been particularly harsh. Michael's hours were cut when his company reduced its fleet, and Rachel's diner job saw fewer tips as inflation tightened everyone's wallets. Their savings evaporated as medical bills for Sam's recurring asthma attacks piled up. Despite their best efforts, the Petersons fell behind on rent. Their landlord, Mr. Hastings, wasn't a heartless man, but he was bound by his own financial obligations. He gave the Petersons a final notice, his voice tinged with regret. "I'm sorry, but I can't extend this any longer. You have 7 days to pay what's due," he said, his words landing like a blow. Ellie, at 10 years old, was sharp enough to notice the tension in her parents' hushed conversations and the way they avoided her questions about the future. Sam, just 6, remained blissfully unaware, happily playing with his cars while his parents silently worried about how much longer they could keep a roof over his head. Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Baron Trump was navigating a world vastly different from the Petersons. As the youngest child of a high-profile family, he grew up in the public eye, but Baron had always preferred staying out of the spotlight. He valued his privacy and found solace in quiet, meaningful pursuits, like volunteering at local shelters and working with organizations dedicated to supporting families in need. Baron's low-key demeanor often surprised people who assumed he lived a life detached from the struggles of ordinary people. But those close to him knew better. He had a strong sense of empathy, shaped by watching his parents navigate their roles with grace and resilience. He understood the weight of responsibility and often sought ways to use his resources to make a difference, no matter how small. The Petersons' story came to Baron's attention through a chance encounter. One of Rachel's co-workers, Karen, also volunteered at a community center where Baron frequently visited. She mentioned the family's plight during a conversation about how rising rents were displacing local families. Something about the Petersons' situation struck a chord with Baron. Perhaps it was the thought of 2 young children facing the prospect of losing their home, or the image of parents doing everything in their power to stay afloat. Baron decided to act, but not in the way most would expect. He wasn't interested in flashy gestures or public recognition. Instead, he quietly reached out to Karen, asking for more details about the Petersons' situation and how he could help. When Karen mentioned that Michael and Rachel were too proud to ask for charity, Barron knew he had to find a way to approach the situation with care and respect. Back at their apartment, the Petersons were scrambling for solutions. Michael picked up extra shifts wherever he could, and Rachel began selling homemade baked goods to their neighbors. Still, the numbers didn't add up. Each night, after Ellie and Sam were tucked into bed, Michael and Rachel would sit at the kitchen table, poring over bills and silently hoping for a miracle. Unbeknownst to them, that miracle was already in motion. Barron, with Karen's help, devised a plan that would not only cover their immediate rent, but also give the family a fighting chance to rebuild their stability. What began as a casual conversation in a community center was about to become a life-changing moment for the Petersons. As the week drew to a close, the Petersons braced for what felt like an inevitable eviction. But on the final day of the deadline, a knock at the door set events into motion that would forever alter the trajectory of their lives. On the other side of the door stood Barron Trump, carrying not just a solution to their immediate crisis, but a message of hope that would resonate far beyond their small apartment. The Petersons' apartment was quiet, the kind of silence that comes from heavy hearts. Michael sat at the kitchen table, staring at the eviction notice, while Rachel wiped her hands on her apron, her mind racing for solutions. The kids, Ellie and Sam, were in their room, obliviously building a Lego tower, their laughter the only bright spot in the gloomy evening. Then came the knock. It wasn't the hesitant tap of a neighbor or the brusque knock of the landlord. This was firm, deliberate. Michael exchanged a worried glance with Rachel as he rose to answer the door. On the other side stood a young man, tall and composed, with a calm but purposeful expression. Michael hesitated. "Can I help you?" he asked, his voice wary. "Hi, my name is Barron," the young man said, his voice steady yet warm. "I'm here to help." Rachel joined Michael at the door, her confusion evident. Barron continued, "I heard about your situation and wanted to step in. I know this may seem unexpected, but I'd like to cover your rent and help you get back on your feet." For a moment, time seemed to stand still. Michael's mouth opened, but no words came out. Rachel blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. Was this some kind of joke? A scam? But Barron's sincerity was undeniable. He handed them a check, its amount enough to cover not just the overdue rent, but several months ahead. "This isn't charity," he added quickly, sensing their hesitation. "It's a gesture of support. You're doing everything you can, I just want to make it a little easier." The impact of that moment was seismic. It was more than financial relief. It was the lifeline the Petersons had been praying for, delivered by an unexpected hand. The initial shock of Barron's gesture left Michael and Rachel reeling. Holding the check in his hands, Michael struggled to find the right words. I don't know how to thank you," he stammered. Barron, standing tall but approachable, shook his head with a kind smile. "There's no need for thanks. Just focus on your family." Rachel's instincts, honed by years of struggle, kicked in. "This is too much," she said hesitantly. "We can't just take this." Barron's expression softened, sensing her discomfort. "I understand how you feel," he said. "But think of it as a stepping stone. You're already doing so much. This is just to give you a little breathing room." After a few more reassurances, the Petersons accepted the help, though it didn't come without complications. The landlord, Mr. Hastings, was surprised when Michael handed over the overdue rent and advanced payments. "Where did this come from?" he asked, not unkindly but curious. Michael chose to keep Barron's identity private, simply saying, "A kind soul stepped in to help." But the tension wasn't over. News of Barron's involvement began to ripple through the community, thanks to Karen, who inadvertently mentioned it to a mutual friend. Soon, whispers about the mystery benefactor reached local news outlets. Though Barron had intended his gesture to remain discreet, the story began gaining traction, with reporters sniffing around for details. This created an unexpected challenge for the Petersons. One evening, as Michael returned from a late shift, he was greeted by a local news crew waiting outside their apartment. Rachel stood at the door, shielding Ellie and Sam, her voice firm as she politely declined to answer their questions. The attention felt invasive, threatening the privacy they had fought so hard to maintain. Baron, hearing about the growing media interest, immediately reached out. "I didn't mean for this to become public," he apologized over the phone. "I'll do what I can to redirect the attention." He worked quietly to deflect the story, contacting media outlets and asking for their discretion, reminding them of the family's vulnerability. While the media frenzy subsided, the Petersons faced another hurdle, accepting their newfound stability. For so long, their lives had revolved around survival. Now, with the immediate financial strain lifted, Rachel found herself questioning what came next. "I don't even know how to plan beyond this week," she admitted to Michael one night. Michael, too, wrestled with his pride. Though grateful for the help, he worried about becoming dependent on someone else's kindness. "We have to make this count," he said, determined. The couple began brainstorming ways to rebuild. Rachel expanded her baking efforts, turning her small side hustle into a growing business, while Michael took on freelance delivery gigs to supplement his income. Their determination inspired Baron, who quietly checked in through Karen. He admired their resilience and decided to offer further indirect support. Using his resources, he connected Rachel with a local entrepreneur who helped her scale her baking business. Meanwhile, Michael was introduced to a network of delivery professionals that opened doors to more stable work. The Petersons' growth didn't come without setbacks. Rachel struggled to manage large orders, often staying up late to perfect her recipes, while Michael's freelance work meant unpredictable hours that left him exhausted. But each challenge was met with a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. Ellie and Sam, though young, noticed the shift in their parents. Ellie proudly showed off her mom's baked goods at school, while Sam often sat next to Michael as he planned delivery routes, excitedly pointing out streets on a map. For the first time in months, the family began to dream again. Through it all, Baron maintained his quiet support. He declined interviews and refused to let the story become a public spectacle. "This was never about attention," he explained to Karen. "It's about giving a family the chance they deserve." As the Petersons continued to find their footing, their relationship with Baron deepened. He visited occasionally, not as a benefactor, but as a friend, sharing meals and listening to their dreams for the future. These interactions reminded the Petersons that his gesture wasn't charity. It was an investment in their potential. The rising action built not just tension, but layers of trust, resilience, and growth. The Petersons faced their challenges head-on, their gratitude matched by their determination to build a better life. And Baron, in his quiet yet impactful way, became a part of their story, a story that was far from over, but already filled with hope and possibility. It had been weeks since Baron Trump's generous gesture, and while the Petersons had started to rebuild their lives, the challenges of navigating their newfound stability reached a breaking point. Rachel's baking business had gained traction, and Michael had secured more consistent delivery work, but the strain of balancing these efforts with their family life began to take its toll. One evening, as Rachel worked late to finish a large order, Michael returned home from a grueling day. The kitchen was a whirlwind of flour and baking trays. Ellie and Sam were arguing over toys in the living room, and Rachel looked visibly exhausted. "I can't keep up with all of this," she admitted, her voice cracking. Michael sighed, his own frustration simmering beneath the surface. "We're doing everything we can," he said, his tone sharper than he intended. "But it still feels like we're barely holding it together." Their argument escalated, both of them venting months of pent-up stress. "Maybe we're not cut out for this," Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. "We're supposed to be better now, but it feels like we're just failing in different ways." Just as the tension reached its peak, there was a knock at the door. Michael opened it to find Baron standing there, holding a small box. "I hope I'm not interrupting," he said, noticing the strained expressions on their faces. Michael hesitated, but Rachel stepped forward, wiping her hands on her apron. "No, come in," she said, her voice faltering but welcoming. Baron entered, setting the box on the kitchen table. "I heard you've been working non-stop," he said, his tone gentle. "I wanted to check in and see how things are going." Rachel and Michael exchanged a glance, their earlier frustration softening. Rachel poured out their struggles, balancing the business, raising the kids, and managing their own expectations. "We're grateful for everything you've done," she said, her voice trembling. "But sometimes it feels like we're still stuck in survival mode." Baron listened intently, his expression thoughtful. "It sounds like you're putting a lot of pressure on yourselves," he said finally. "What you're doing isn't easy, and it's okay to ask for help. You've already come so far. You don't have to do it all at once." He opened the box he'd brought, revealing a set of business tools and resources tailored for Rachel's baking and Michael's delivery work. "I thought these might make things a little easier," he said. The gesture, though simple, felt monumental. For Rachel and Michael, it wasn't just the tools. It was the reminder that they didn't have to face their challenges alone. The night ended with laughter and shared determination. Baron's presence had shifted the energy in the room, turning their breaking point into a breakthrough. For the first time in weeks, the Petersons felt like they were truly moving forward, not just surviving, but building something sustainable together. The night of Baron's visit marked a turning point for the Petersons. His thoughtful gesture and words of encouragement reminded Michael and Rachel that progress wasn't about perfection. It was about persistence. The tools he had brought, including business planning templates for Rachel's baking and route optimization software for Michael's deliveries, proved to be more valuable than they initially realized. The next day, Rachel reorganized her baking schedule, focusing on fewer but higher-value orders. The time she saved allowed her to spend more evenings with Ellie and Sam, who had missed their mom's bedtime stories. Michael, using the new software, found ways to complete his delivery routes more efficiently, which cut down on his long hours and gave him more energy to invest in family time. The family dynamics began to shift. Laughter returned to the dinner table as they shared stories about their days. Ellie proudly showcased Rachel's baked goods during her school's show and tell, while Sam gleefully rode along with Michael on shorter weekend delivery runs. Baron continued to check in, always from a distance, respecting the family's privacy while quietly cheering on their progress. His role as a supportive friend, rather than a savior, allowed the Petersons to own their journey forward. Though challenges remained, the Petersons had found their rhythm, turning their struggles into stepping stones. For the first time in a long while, they felt the weight of their burdens lifting, replaced by a sense of hope and newfound confidence in the path ahead. Months after Baron Trump's unexpected intervention, the Petersons' lives looked vastly different. Rachel's baking business flourished as word of mouth spread through the community. She started selling her creations at local events and even received an offer to supply baked goods to a neighborhood cafe. Michael, now equipped with efficient tools and a network of connections, secured a stable delivery contract, ensuring consistent income. The family's apartment, once a source of stress, transformed into a true home. Ellie and Sam, thriving under their parents' renewed stability, filled the space with laughter and creativity. The Petersons no longer merely survived, they lived. Baron remained a quiet presence in their lives, visiting occasionally and cheering on their successes. His initial act of kindness had planted a seed, but it was the Petersons' determination and resilience that nurtured it into something remarkable. For Michael and Rachel, their journey wasn't just about overcoming financial hardship. It was about rediscovering their strength as a family. The Petersons' story became a beacon of hope for others, a reminder that even in the darkest times, a single act of kindness could spark a brighter future. The Petersons' story is more than just a tale of struggle and triumph. It's a testament to the power of compassion and the resilience of the human spirit. Baron Trump's unexpected generosity created a ripple effect, showing how a single act of kindness can transform not just lives, but entire communities. But this story isn't just about what Baron did. It's about how Michael and Rachel took that spark of hope and turned it into lasting change. Their journey reminds us that while help can open doors, it's our own strength and determination that allow us to walk through them. Now, it's your turn to reflect. Have you ever experienced or witnessed a moment where kindness changed someone's life? Share your story in the comments below, because your experiences might inspire others to make a difference too. This story also challenges us to think about the ways we can contribute to our communities. Whether it's supporting a local business, lending a helping hand, or simply offering a kind word, every action counts. If this story moved you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe for more uplifting content, and share it with someone who could use a little inspiration today. Together, let's create a world where kindness isn't rare, it's the norm. After all, even the smallest gestures can lead to extraordinary outcomes.